In May 2025, President Trump reignited the US-China trade war with a bold ultimatum: a sweeping 25% tariff on any iPhones sold in the US that weren't manufactured on American soil. The announcement sent shockwaves through the tech industry and beyond, as Trump made it clear that he was willing to use America's economic might to reshape global supply chains. This wasn't just a policy proposal, it was a direct challenge to the way multinational companies like Apple have operated for decades, relying on complex international networks to keep costs down and innovation high. This was more than political posturing. It was a direct threat to Apple's global business model, broadcast on Truth Social and aimed at forcing jobs back to America. Trump's message was unambiguous: bring manufacturing home or pay the price. For Apple, whose brand is built on sleek design and seamless global logistics, the ultimatum struck at the heart of its identity. The company suddenly found itself at the center of a heated debate over American jobs, national security, and the future of global trade. The administration set a June deadline, extending the warning to rivals like Samsung, signaling a new era of economic nationalism. The clock was ticking, and the world was watching to see how Apple and its competitors would respond. Would they shift production, absorb the costs, or pass them on to consumers? The uncertainty was palpable, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. For Apple, whose supply chain was deeply rooted in China, the stakes were existential: absorb billions in new costs or pass them to consumers, risking demand and brand loyalty. The company faced logistical nightmares, potential delays, and the prospect of having to rebuild its manufacturing infrastructure almost from scratch. Every link in Apple's global chain was suddenly under scrutiny, from raw materials to final assembly. The announcement rattled markets. Apple's stock dropped 3% in a single day, dragging the S&P 500 with it. Investors feared not just for Apple but for the entire tech sector, as the ripple effects of the tariff threat spread across global markets. Investors were spooked by the uncertainty. As Wall Street's forecasts were thrown into chaos, analysts scrambled to revise their projections, unsure how Apple, or its rivals, would weather the storm. The sense of instability was contagious, affecting everything from tech stocks to consumer confidence. The message was clear: in this new era, political decisions could upend even the world's most valuable companies. No corporation, no matter how powerful, was immune from the shifting winds of geopolitics. The iPhone, once a symbol of global commerce and technological progress, was now at the center of a geopolitical storm, its future uncertain, its fate tied to the outcome of a high-stakes battle between nations. Apple's response to Trump's threat was silence. No press releases, no interviews, and no public statements. The company's leadership chose not to engage in a war of words or escalate tensions in the media. There were no public rebuttals from Tim Cook, no fiery tweets, and no attempts to sway public opinion. Instead, Apple's top executives maintained a calm, almost stoic presence, refusing to be drawn into the political fray. But behind the scenes, Apple was anything but passive. The company's boardrooms buzzed with activity as teams quietly mapped out contingency plans and assessed every possible scenario. Cook, a supply chain expert, had long anticipated this risk and was already diversifying Apple's manufacturing footprint. Years before the headlines, he had begun exploring alternatives, knowing that over-reliance on any one country could spell trouble. Instead of engaging in a public fight, Apple quietly accelerated its shift away from China, orchestrating a massive supply chain reorganization. This was not a knee-jerk reaction but a calculated move, executed with precision and speed. The Cook Doctrine focused on resilience, building new manufacturing hubs, training workforces, and investing in advanced technologies to future-proof Apple's operations. It was about reducing dependency on any single country, spreading risk, and ensuring that Apple could weather any geopolitical storm. By mid-2025, Apple had already begun moving significant production to India and Vietnam, aligning partially with the administration's goals on its own terms. These new hubs became symbols of Apple's adaptability and global reach. Cook's methodical approach turned a potential crisis into a manageable, if expensive, business challenge. Every decision was weighed, every risk calculated, and every move kept under wraps until the time was right. Apple's silence wasn't weakness, it was strategic leverage. By refusing to be provoked, the company kept its options open and its adversaries guessing. In a volatile world, a well-executed plan spoke louder than any statement. Apple's quiet confidence became its greatest strength, proving that sometimes the most powerful response is action without fanfare. For years, Made in China defined the iPhone, with up to 90% assembled in cities like Zhengzhou. But by 2025, this reliance became Apple's biggest liability. Facing tariffs and geopolitical friction, Apple launched a monumental supply chain migration, diversifying production to reduce vulnerability. The shift wasn't just about moving factories. It meant rebuilding an entire ecosystem of suppliers and skilled workers in new countries. Apple pushed partners like Foxconn and Pegatron to expand in India and Vietnam, redrawing the global tech manufacturing map. By July 2025, a significant portion of iPhone production had already moved out of China. This migration wasn't just defensive, it opened new markets and made Apple's operations more robust. China's dominance was ending. Diversification was the new order. Apple's Great Migration marked a pragmatic response to a changing world. India emerged as Apple's new manufacturing powerhouse. Once focused on sales, India became central to Apple's production strategy, thanks to its vast workforce and government incentives. By mid-2025, Apple committed $1.5 billion to build a major component center, aiming to move all US-bound iPhone production to India by 2026. The results were swift. Most iPhones sold in the US were now made in India, with Foxconn, Pegatron, and Wistron ramping up operations. The Made in India label became the new standard for American consumers. For Apple, India offered a hedge against China and access to a billion-strong market. For India, Apple's investment validated its economic ambitions and spurred tech sector growth. Despite challenges, India had firmly established itself as the new iPhone manufacturing hub. Apple's diversification didn't stop with the iPhone. Vietnam quietly became the hub for Macs, iPads, Apple Watches, and AirPods, thanks to its skilled workforce and proximity to Asian supply chains. By July 2025, most non-iPhone Apple products for the US were made in Vietnam, with partners like Foxconn and Luxshare investing billions. This strategy spread risk. If issues arose in India, production wouldn't halt. Vietnam specialized in complex electronics, optimizing efficiency across product lines. Apple's new global network was resilient, with each region playing a distinct role. Vietnam wasn't just a backup, it was a crucial pillar of Apple's future. Tariffs and supply chain shifts hit Apple's finances hard. In Q3 2025, Apple absorbed $800 million in tariff costs, projecting $1.1 billion for the next quarter. Despite this, iPhone sales soared, up 13% year over year, and Apple's services division hit record highs, cushioning the blow. But Wall Street remained wary. Apple's stock dropped 3% after Trump's announcement and was down 20% for the year. The threat of a full 25% tariff loomed large. So far, Apple shielded consumers from price hikes by absorbing costs. Analysts agreed, if tariffs were fully implemented, Apple couldn't absorb them all. The next iPhone could see a significant price jump, as the costs of the trade war finally reached consumers. Apple's financial resilience was impressive, but the risk of higher prices was real. The era of cheap iPhones was under threat. Trump's Vision iPhones made in the USA. But industry experts call it a fantasy. Costs would skyrocket, with high-end iPhones priced up to $3,500, turning them into luxury items. The US lacks the massive manufacturing infrastructure and workforce China provides. Rebuilding it would take decades and hundreds of billions. Apple does assemble some Mac Pros in Texas, but mass-producing 200 million iPhones a year is a different league. The global supply chain exists for a reason: efficiency and affordability. A fully American-made iPhone would devastate sales and market share. For now, the globalized model keeps the iPhone accessible to millions. The patriotic dream remains economically impossible. Apple's value lies in design and innovation, not just assembly. While mass iPhone production in the US is unfeasible due to various economic and logistical reasons, Apple is investing heavily in America's future, ensuring that the core of its innovation and high-value activities remain on home soil. In February 2025, Apple pledged over $500 billion for US investments over 4 years, focusing on high-value sectors such as technology, education, and infrastructure. Plans include a new Texas factory, which will be a state-of-the-art facility designed to push the boundaries of modern manufacturing. Additionally, a manufacturing academy will be established to train workers in advanced skills, ensuring a highly skilled workforce for the future. The real focus, however, is on research and development. Billions are being poured into AI, silicon engineering, and chip design, all led by US-based teams that are at the forefront of technological innovation. Apple's A-series and M-series chips, which power its most popular devices, are designed in California, anchoring the company's intellectual heart firmly in America and driving forward its technological edge. Tim Cook reframes the debate, emphasizing that Apple's greatest contribution is in high-paying design and engineering jobs, not just assembly lines. By investing in innovation and cutting-edge technology, Apple positions itself as a champion of American prosperity, creating jobs and fostering economic growth. The question shifts from where is it built to where is the value created, and for Apple the answer is clear, right here in America, where innovation and value creation are at the core of its mission. Despite Apple's strategic pivot, uncertainty remains. The tariff threat hasn't vanished. It could return with a change in political winds. Apple has reduced risk, but the core conflict between reshoring and global efficiency is unresolved. New threats loom, like Section 232 tariffs justified on national security grounds, giving the president broad authority. For consumers, this means unpredictable prices. Future iPhone costs could swing with international relations. The tech industry watches Apple's moves, reconsidering their own global strategies. The saga of Trump's tariffs and Apple's response is a defining story of globalization versus nationalism. Tim Cook's real victory, adapting with speed and foresight, steering Apple through turbulent waters. The global tech industry's stability now depends on finding a sustainable balance between politics and economics. For Apple and its customers, the future remains uncertain, but the company is better prepared than ever.